Welcome to Conversations from Stritch. Today is January 18th, 2024. And I'm Dr. David Livingston, President of Lewis University. And I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Christopher Sent, our provost here at Lewis. Happy New Year, everybody. It is hard to believe that it's 2024. If you're like me, I'm still signing letters with 2023 because I always forget. But we are here in the new semester. I hope everybody had a great holiday and break and feels replenished coming back. This is the first week of classes, and I want to both welcome all of our students back. We're excited that you're back. We're excited that you got back safe because I know weather was bad and driving difficult and all of that stuff, moving back in and getting to classes this first week. It feels balmy out there, to be honest with you, Chris. I think it's 15 degrees out today, but it feels much warmer than that. We're also really grateful to everybody in the community who helped with getting students oriented, get them back in the residence halls, getting them their cars opened up when they froze up, getting them jumped, and getting this semester off to a great start with teaching and all sorts of other activities, which we're actually going to focus on today with our guest. I do want to mention that we were really deeply saddened by hearing about the death of Dr. Juan Ojeda, Dean of Students at St. Augustine College. Dr. Ojeda was an esteemed and beloved member of the St. Augustine College for 28 years, which is the majority of the time that St. Augustine has been around for about 41 years, so 28 of those 41 years. Dr. Ojeda was a leader in the student services area. We will be celebrating his life on Friday night at 6 p.m. at the Ravenswood Presbyterian Church in Chicago, followed by a reception. So a real loss. Chris and I have gotten to know Juan over the last couple years. Just an incredible, generous spirit, really cared about student success, and it's a real loss to the whole Lewis community and specifically to the St. Augustine College community. So, much to be grateful for in a life well lived and much loss to the community. So I know we have, even though it's just the first week, we have actually a lot of stuff going on campus.
Yeah, all kinds of things going on and lots of news. Hello, everyone. Great to be with you. And again, I just want to repeat that Dr. Ojeda's loss is really a significant loss for all of us and for the St. Augustine community in particular. And, I feel like we've known him for about a year now, and it's just such a unique and powerful presence and positive presence to be around. And, I know his loss will be felt deeply in the St. Augustine community for a long time. And it's also inspiring to see the many tributes and appreciations for him, for people who knew him for much, much longer than we have. So now some news. We were so pleased this week to announce Lewis's participation in Hope Chicago, the new 2-generation economic mobility program offering debt-free college and workforce opportunities to 4,000 Chicago public school graduates and their parents. Lewis will welcome Hope Scholars in the fall of 2024. Hope Scholars can attend partner institutions like Lewis debt-free, and through these partnerships, students receive access to non-financial supports that are key to helping students succeed, advising and mentoring and so on. The collaboration between Hope Chicago and these post-secondary partners expands higher education access for residents in some of Chicago's most systematically disinvested neighborhoods. We're so happy to be a part of it, and looking forward to welcoming Hope Scholars into the Lewis community next fall. Congratulations to 3 professors from the Department of Nursing who recently received the 2023 Nurse Educator Fellowship Award from the Illinois Board of Higher Education. Those 3 are Jennifer Bosworth, Dr. Janine Haberman, and Dr. Cynthia Hinojosa, each of whom received $10,000 to continue professional development and to make improvements in the nursing experience at Lewis University. So Professor Bosworth will work on a health promotion education in our curriculum. Dr. Hinojosa will study advanced practice simulations And Dr. Haberman will incorporate Lasallian core principles into recruitment and onboarding in Lewis's nursing department. So very exciting, and congratulations to the three of them. And also it's great for Lewis to bring all that great research and knowledge into our nursing department. Congratulations to Dr. R.V. Vitente, who recently published several articles in respected physical therapy journals. I'm not sure if we've ever announced that Dr. Vitente is a new member of our faculty as of maybe 3 months ago. We're so pleased to have him, and he's a very productive scholar and will be the inaugural director of the physical therapy program when it starts next fall. So he co-authored a paper called Clinicians as Researchers in the Philippine Journal of Physical Therapy, and also authored and published 2 articles in the October-December edition of Topics in Geriatric Rehabilitation Journal. And finally, he shared his experience in an article called What's the Impact of AI on Physical Therapy, which was published in December in the 2023 edition of APTA magazine. That article discusses how using artificial intelligence for diagnostic purposes could benefit the physical therapy profession. I see a theme in our these announcements. There's a lot of interest in investment and research around simulation in labs and the use of AI in the health profession. So that's exciting that our faculty are on the forefront of that work. Congratulations to Drs. Jamil Mustafa and Christopher Wilgos, professors of English Studies, who edited a special issue of the journal Humanities entitled Gothic Adaptation, Intermedial and Intercultural Shape-Shifting, considering adaptations ranging from films and television shows to fairy tales and music videos. The essays in this special issue demonstrate how adaptation is the lifeblood of the Gothic tradition. So we had Dr. Mustafa here as a guest not too long ago, talking about his book that's along the same themes in of the Gothic and about adaptation. So it's wonderful that he was able to edit this journal, but also to do it in collaboration with one of his colleagues from English Studies. The Lewis University Athletic Department has announced that 2 coaches, Dan McCarthy and Mitchell Tomaskowitz, will be the newest inductees into the Lewis Academy of Coaches. The induction ceremony will take place during halftime of the men's basketball game on Saturday, so please come out to support. It's a wonderful tradition that has been going on for maybe 5 years, 6 years, where every year we invite new coaches from the Lewis, connected to the Lewis community, to the Coaches Hall of Fame, Academy of Coaches, and we look forward to inviting those 2 or celebrating those 2 on Saturday. Speaking of athletics, Lewis is ranked 9th in the Learfield Cup standings based on our athletic performance in the fall seasons. We talked a lot about the tremendous success in the fall, so it's probably not too much of a surprise, but it's an incredible accomplishment. The Learfield Cup ranks athletic programs by division, and NCAA Division II currently includes 293 universities, so this is a great accomplishment to be 9th for the fall, and that will continue tracking that throughout the year. And then finally, local high school artists have had their talent displayed since January 11th in the Brent and Jane Wadsworth Family Gallery. The 7th annual High School Art Invitational is free and open to the public from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Local students from 9 high schools are featured in the show with approximately 40 works of art consisting of paintings, drawings, sculptures, digital works, and mixed media. All are welcome to attend the free closing reception and awards presentation at 7 p.m. tonight. And that's one event that's going on. There's a lot more events going on, especially today and this evening. So I know you're going to share some of those.
So I mean, and I guess I just want to make a couple quick comments about some of the stuff in your section. Received an email today from RV as well about this, which maybe we'll talk about more next week because it's in 2 weeks, I think. But as we're preparing for physical therapy, but have so many things in health sciences, this ability to use glasses and holograms, I don't know how to, but virtual reality, augmented reality, to be able to see into the body and do that. And I guess Case Western has worked with Microsoft to develop this. And again, we might talk about it more in the future, but just so much stuff that's going on in the health sciences, so many positive things. And, seeing that whole suite of programs continuing to grow is just really exciting. And I know we say it all the time, but Lewis athletics is incredible. I mean, to be top 10 is like top 3%. So, better than 97% of the schools in the country in terms of overall athletic performance. So
amazing.
Congratulations to the coaches, the trainers, the athletes, of course, and thank you to the parents and all of those that are supporting our student athletes, because the people that come to the gym week in and week out, or go to the field, or go to the softball or baseball field, go to the swimming pool, make a really big difference in terms of the support that the student athletes feel. So we do have a lot of stuff going on. I'm excited. Chris knows this, but we have an event happening on the 18th, Henna and Waffle Sundae Bar. And I just have to say, my son got married about 2 years ago, and my daughter-in-law her family's originally from India, so they did henna at one of the events. And I'm so impressed by henna artists. Like, you walk up there and they can do somebody's hand in like 5 minutes. It's just incredible. So I assume we're going to have some henna artists on campus doing that work. That's exciting. Obviously, we have women's basketball and men's basketball hosting McHenry this weekend. That was where we'll celebrate the coaches that have done such a great job. And on that front, Chris, I mean, you and I know this, but we have such a positive influence on the broader national stage when it comes to these coaches, but also when I think about all the superintendents that are out there in schools, all the chiefs of police that are out there, all the chief nursing officers that are out there, the way in which we impact the community by creating leadership, I think, is so significant. I also want to open mic night. I know that they took down this thing, but open mic night at a new location. So we are having that on the 18th at Embers this time. And then we do have the Hall Olympics kicking off and the Student Involvement Fair that are all next week. That's during the community hour.
We're going to talk about those later.
And I would just say, a few of these things, we'll talk about with our guest. But there's a lot going on campus. So a lot to be excited about. Even when it's cold out, we have many activities for our students to do. So really excited. So Chris, you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, I'm really excited to introduce our guest. And I just want to agree that there's so much to do tonight and throughout the weekend. There's a lot of athletics going on. Sometimes we, notably, we did not talk about any travel because all of our teams that are competing right now are home this weekend. So it's an incredible weekend for athletics as well as all the other activities that were mentioned. I'm not really sure what henna and Sundays have in common. If you can answer that.
That's beyond me. I think
maybe our guest can answer that.
maybe.
But anyway, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. And as always, a reminder, if you have a question for her or for us, please use the askus@lewisu.edu email address. And if you are watching this after it has been posted on YouTube, you can still ask a question and we'll get the question out to our guest, or we'll try to get it answered by whomever might know the answer. So I'm really pleased to introduce Norah Collins Pienta, who joined the Lewis community in September as the Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President for Student Life. She has over 25 years of experience working in Catholic higher education, most recently serving as the Dean of Students at Dominican University. She has a BA in Art History and Communication from St. Norbert, a Master's in College Student Personnel from Western Illinois, and a doctorate in Higher Education and Organizational Change from Benedictine. Her experiences include responsibilities with student activities, campus programs, leadership, orientation, first-year experience, student conduct, Title IX, and emergency response. So really, what hasn't she done in this area of student life is maybe an easier question. So Norah, welcome.
Great,
We're so
thank
glad
you.
You're here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking the time, and we've
thanks
welcomed
for
you many
joining us.
times to Lewis, but we'll do it again.
Well, thank you, I
I'm
appreciate
so
that. Glad to be here.
Before it completely wears off.
Yes.
So this is we can talk about some of the stuff that's happening in the spring, around the student life area, but it's also just a way for the community to get to know you. And so our first question is maybe not directly related to your background, but directly related to our continuously improving, I hope, but redesigning the way we support students on campus. So many members of our community probably don't know what you're responsible for. That's my polite way of saying that. So what are you responsible for?
Sure. So as the Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President, I'm a member of the leadership team of the Division of Student Life and working collaboratively to coordinate support services. But directly kind of in my area and portfolio, residence life, student conduct, Title IX, our assessment and care team, student recreation, wellness center, so health and counseling services, as well as student engagement and multicultural student support, fall within my portfolio of areas. So it's a robust portfolio, but it's an exciting group of professionals and staff to be working with to support students.
So, so I'm interested in, and this is really hard to do in like 30 seconds, but I'm going to ask it anyway. People often get confused as to what Title IX is. So I think anytime we have an opportunity to just say, like, you're responsible for, what is it? What does it encompass? What does Title IX encompass for, what are we responsible for relative to that legislation?
Yeah, so there's been legislation that was passed in the early 70s really about equity. And so a lot of the focus early on was related to athletics, but it is much broader than that. And so how do we create an environment and campus community that is free of sexual harassment and provides equitable access to the learning environment for all members of our community? So any concerns related to sexual harassment and those types of things to be reported, as well as outreach and education and programming, so folks can be mindful of that and how do they be good bystanders and intervening if that were to happen.
Yeah. And I love that. I've heard that phrase when people describe Title IX often of, you know, it needs to be a safe and, you know, kind of productive learning environment for every member of the community. And that is kind of where I think the legislation's key motive is. Like the motive is anybody who comes to school here should be able to learn and in a supportive and free and fair environment. And I love the way, because it's hard to summarize. It's a huge piece of legislation. So I love that you can summarize it so well. So I appreciate that.
So, you know, I always like to ask people this, like, what do you do every day? Like what, or in a course of a week, because that's such a huge portfolio of things. You know, I want to get more into how they, you know, they're very different things too. But so what do you, like, what did you do yesterday?
So there's meetings that need to happen, but working with my staff, you know, I think still learning as a new member of the community, still kind of getting through one academic cycle is always helpful with the start of a new semester especially. But making sure our resident students were on campus, making sure we have events ready for the spring semester, that we have our community hour events ready to go. We've got some great new ideas, which we'll talk about in a little bit related to some of those. And so just kind of trying to put those pieces together and then identifying how do we best meet our students' needs. So how do we get that information to students and how do we make sure we're available to hear their feedback, hear questions that they have. And so being able to kind of engage with that. So lots of drop-in meetings, student meetings, to be able to help kind of navigate the experience.
And if somebody wanted to find you, where would they actually go? Where is your office?
Yep, so I'm in the Learning Resource Center on the ground floor, so across from Residence Life, next to LUPD, to kind of give folks some proximity.
So all three of us have been in this work for a long time, yourself included. So, you know, you kind of New Year's start, obviously, in some sense, this last year was exciting because it was a new place, new people to meet. But what motivates you, inspires you, keeps you going in this work in terms of being a professional in student life?
Sure, yeah. So it was important for me for my entire career to work at very mission-centered institutions. So the type of institution that Lewis is, to focus on trying to provide access and reasonable educational, positive educational experiences for students. And then being able to help students, right? When you have a student concern come in and being able to help them navigate, often with first generation students and students that might be new to campus, helping them kind of navigate that higher education environment, so that we can try to remove those obstacles, right? And be able to kind of see those successes. Even as, right, just one semester at Lewis, at commencement, seeing a couple students walk across that stage and like knowing the difference that I know we already had in those students' lives, and that's just obviously a small sample of the impact that we in student life and across campus folks are having for students to be able to reach that milestone.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
We kind of went through this range of experiences that you've had, but how did you start working in this field?
So when I was graduating college with a history and communications degree, my mother said to me, "What are you going to do with that?" And I said, "I don't know." And then so I talked to mentors as an involved student leader in college, talked to mentors that I had and had the realization that this is their life calling and their vocation, and had that realization of, I could do this. And then how do I go about doing this? So I have to go to graduate school. Okay, so then started that process to understand, as I thought about where my interests were, my passions were, staying in that environment was where I wanted to be.
And it's a great testament to kind of many of our, what we might call liberal arts degrees. There are master's degrees in these fields, which you have done, but there aren't many undergrad degrees in student life or being a professional in student life. You don't find that in undergraduate curriculum. Somebody could probably create it, but it's interesting that people who have that great experience and are leaders on campus, which you said you were, often then are like, well, how do you get your job? Like you're talking to the person who you worked with as an adult, supervisor, and you're like, how do I get your job?
How do I become you?
How do I become you? Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic because when people, if they're studying accounting, they're taking classes to prepare them to be an accountant, but you're not taking those classes, you're taking other classes, but then you're doing the work at night by being head of this club or part of the student government or whatever the case may be. Yeah, it's great.
But also I think people maybe are not always knowledgeable that there are graduate degrees that professionals in this field get. So could you talk a little bit about what you studied? I emphasize the names of the degrees that you got because I think it's interesting and that is a pretty common path for a lot of people nowadays.
Yes.
So what did you study?
Yes,
What do you
study?
when
the master's degree was in college student personnel, and so there's some nuances to the names, I think, depending on the program, but college student development, to really understand kind of the identity development and kind of traditional age as well as adult students and different identity groups, as well as some of the functional areas of higher education so that you can learn how to support students and help them achieve that goal while appropriately still challenging them in that work that they're doing. So, I think the activities we provide and the programs that we have and student organizations, it's not only about the fun that is had, which is important, and we need to be able to provide that for a sense of community and a sense of belonging, but the learning that happens for those leaders and even for the students that are only attending an event, right, managing their time to be able to be present to that so that they can kind of understand that holistic experience that they have. So some developmental theories and functional area kind of knowledge base.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important what both of you are emphasizing because it is a massive industry. I mean, I think some people don't realize how many billions of dollars are spent every year across the whole United States from community colleges through R1 institutions. It's just a massive enterprise. But there are professionals who focus on how do we make sure students are successful as a holistic person, and that it's not a small thing. And obviously we have professors in chemistry or professors in communications, but we need those professionals, and so I appreciate hearing you talk about that. So you've come in, started to work with colleagues. So could you talk maybe about some of the initiatives for either this coming spring semester or what you kind of see in the next couple of years that you'd really like? I'd like to enhance this in this way, or our team is really excited about this thing that's going to be happening.
Yeah, there's lots happening. And so I think a couple of them, we have 2 grants. So our Department of Justice grant and also the SAMHSA grant. We have the continuation for the Department of Justice, so the new initiatives to continue that great work, as well as to launch our Project Safety Net, right, to have education and awareness and training and programming related to substance abuse and mental health holistically. I think are super exciting, and working with colleagues within student life and outside of student life to be able to achieve those. And then thinking about some areas within kind of student life specifically, just some new ideas related to some of the community hour events, and trying to collaborate and coordinate those in some different ways. We heard from students, there's lots going on. How do I pick?
That's a good problem
So
to have.
how do we bring those pieces together? So right especially when you have what might be more of a educational type of workshop and something that's fun that's happening in a different area or a little more relaxing, how do we bring them together so that we can kind of bridge that experience for students? We know they have a lot going on, so how are we intentional and efficient and kind of helping them really kind of make the most of the time that they have on campus? I think as we think about our residential community, looking at some new living learning opportunities, being more intentional with how do we build that community within the residence halls. They're here a long time, so how do we help support them in ways in building that sense of community with some different types of themes or ideas related to that. So early stages, but it's an exciting.
So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about, we've had other people in the community, other professionals in the community on over the last, 4 years around mental health. But you mentioned mental health. I think so some of our students and faculty who are watching this, might have just an intuitive sense that mental health issues have increased in both kind of frequency and severity among college-bound students across the whole range. But maybe you could just, talk a little bit about, again, you've been in this professional space for a long time. Either anything that you would say to our students or members of our community, because faculty and staff can have mental health issues that they want support with, and they can get that through some of the resources that we have. Just in terms of maybe how to access and anything you would say to members of our community around those. You talked about bystand. So if one of my best friends, or if myself, or if somebody I know, so I don't know, just a little more about that, because I think it's a really important issue.
Yeah, we have seen, and I think the pandemic has kind of raised this and brought it to folks' awareness in new ways, kind of the need for that support. So with our Student Wellness Center and having health and counseling services available on campus for students is a huge resource. So not only the programming and awareness that they do and outreach that they do, but direct student care and appointments that they can have. So I think accessing that and knowing it's okay to go in and seek that support is important. In addition, launching Timely Care, hopefully folks have heard about that, and as a way after hours and on the weekends for students to also be able to access support, physical health as well as mental health needs when maybe the center is closed or folks are commuting, and so being able to access that off campus from anywhere is important. So they'll be able to access a real live professional on the other end of that to have a virtual visit. So I think being able to have that ability to access when students are ready to be able to kind of engage is important. But also knowing, from bystander and peers, being able to help that person know that those resources exist on campus, and if there's a concern, to be able to come and talk to somebody like me, right? Come to my office, tell me your concern, call me, email me. We have ways for members of our community to submit forms online, and so being able to do that so we can help do that outreach and help be able to engage before it's a point of crisis, right? There's so many resources that we can have and students can engage in to be able to help them get the care that they need.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this in meetings and so on, that the timely care access, there's so many specific examples already in the first 5 months of people in different countries, in different languages, and especially during the break, being able to access it, even if it's just 5 people, it's so amazing that people have access to that that support structure now that they had never had before.
Yes. Yes, it's a very significant resource, and so we need students to continue to learn about it and register for it, just so that when you want to be able to access, it's going to be a lot easier to connect.
Yeah, right. That's great. So this is maybe a little bit of a difficult question, but it just occurs to me, I mean, I've thought a lot about this. In your job, you do things that sometimes are separated in other structures at other universities. So you are responsible for, what, I don't quite know how to say this in a nice way, but the judicial process, addressing, in addition to Title IX, addressing, violations of the handbook and behavioral issues that come up among our, that are inevitable in a very large student population like we have. And then also you're responsible for activities and fun and making sure people have a great time and community time. And sometimes it's hard to kind of hold all of that together, to create, because it's also really striking to me listening to you talk that you're responsible for this huge vision and big picture of what student life for undergraduates here is like, but also there's a bunch of very specific individual problems with individual people that you need to address, or at least help the team address. So that's a kind of a balancing act too. But I'm just wondering, I don't know what the question is, but like, how do you balance the fun and the seriousness of this wide range of responsibilities?
Yeah, well, and I think, for my career, working at smaller institutions, medium-sized institution, provides that opportunity for me to have that experience and exposure and connection in different areas. I don't know how happy I would be professionally if I only had, kind of one focus area. So this fits me better. So I think that helps with thinking about kind of the day. And I think it's all about, how do we create a space and a climate and a community where students have a sense of belonging and they feel included in that. And so that's from the events that we have, but also how do we make sure that they understand our values and who we are as an institution and our expectations, so that they can learn from mistakes if they're made, and that happens. And so how do we help students understand that so that they can rise to that, right? We set those expectations, they're going to be able to rise to that and meet that, and be good members of our community. But being able to focus on if there's a misstep, it's a misstep, and how do we help students learn from those experiences as well. There's a lot of good learning that happens through our conduct process.
Yeah, that's great. And there's many, many opportunities for fun along with that. And again, it's just that learning of where boundaries are sometimes. With freedom comes the need to self-regulate around those boundaries of community, because we live together. We don't just get to,
It's
so
a false dichotomy
it is.
that I'm
It's right,
using.
but it's
like everybody's always doing both things all the time. In terms of.
So, is there one or two events coming up this spring that you're really excited about? Anything that you're like, want to make sure we emphasize, and we can, of course, it'll remind me also, or Chris, as we put something up a month from now on the screen when we're focusing on an event. Is there any big things this spring that you and your team are like, oh, that'll be great?
And I think we have a slide that we were putting up earlier. There it is.
Yeah, so here's just a few of the highlights. There are so many more things that are happening on campus on a weekly basis. But next week we are kicking off the Hall Olympics. So for resident students, but commuter students can participate too. And there will be weekly activities and different events through our residence life and our student recreation department that students can participate in. And often, with our student involvement fair next week, students might not have thought about what they wanted, didn't know what kind of time they had, maybe to kind of commit to being engaged in a student organization or learn about different resources. So students should come out and check that out for departments as well as student organizations to be a part of.
So just to be clear, this is Student Involvement Fair is all of the representatives of the different organizations are they inside?
Yes, we're inside, yes, for the winter. So it's got a winter theme. It has a winter theme and some great beanie hats for giveaways and prizes. So there'll be lots of activities that are happening. So over in the science building, AS building, and the university dining room and faculty dining room is where that will be taking place. So.
And that is an extended community hour. So just to remind people, we have 4 of those a year. And then, so this is our first spring semester
Correct.
extended community hour.
Correct, yep. So 11 to 1, so make sure you stop by. Yeah.
Nice.
Then we've also just looked at some different ways to engage with community hour. And so the first Wednesday of every month, the community hour is going to kind of have a What's on Wednesday theme. So we're super excited for this first one.
And
Folks,
let me stop you there.
yes.
It's not on the slide, so President Livingston, let me point out to you, because you may not know this, that What's on Wednesday spells
Oh, wow.
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 That is a big part
I
of this.
didn't know this. The
We're announcing it
WOW,
right now. We have this new
so it
initiative
is,
is called Wow.
Yes, so it is
Wow.
Wow. So folks will be asking what's happening on Wednesday, and they'll be wowed by it. So
Super.
yeah, so there's going to be lots of good activities in the Student Rec Center, including some adoptable puppies for faculty, staff,
Seriously?
and commuter students, not for the residence halls, but so a little puppy bowl. So
Puppy
kind
bowl.
of going in anticipation of the big game. So
See, aren't you thinking wow right now?
yeah.
I'm like, so is somebody going to actually walk away with a puppy? That's what you're saying?
Well, potentially, or at least know that they're available
If
for
they don't live in the
adoption. So
residence
yes,
halls.
if they don't
She's
live in the
emphasizing
residence
this is the
halls,
duality
yes.
of the
Yes.
job that we're just talking about.
I mean,
You're
that is
doing
a wow kind of
unbelievably fun
experience
thing
for
with
Yes.
puppies, and you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't have it.
You can do it here and then bring them home with you. So
Right.
Get your family.
Get your parents to
Yeah.
take
that's
them
right.
on.
We've
right.
teased that I'm going to
You
have
have
a
some
car
experience.
I do
full.
have some experience with that. So true. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Still babysitting a puppy for the last 3 years. So yes.
Oh, a puppy still.
Well, not a
Yeah,
puppy
yeah,
anymore.
I know, but yeah,
Older
no,
dog.
they're always
But
puppies.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, anything, I mean, we got sidetracked a little bit, but anything else
That's
you
right.
might want to make sure that was on that list that we.
So I would just also highlight kind of as the spring continues, right? It's a lot of celebration season, so an opportunity, to celebrate not only commencement-related success, but just the great work our student organizations are doing and student leaders are doing on campus. So Student Senate has a dance in March. There's going to be Unity Ball. So there's lots of great ways that we'll be celebrating that success and involvement as well. And so grateful for our student leaders and the work they're doing there.
Yeah, it is. And I know last year when we, I think it was, I don't know if it was named the Unity Ball also, but it was a big success last. The dance and the whole thing was, students love dances and music and dancing, always a winner. So that's exciting. Very exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful that you're here and so grateful that you're at Lewis. We're glad we stole you from Dominican. And, nothing, Dominican's also
good.
great
Yep.
school, but we're very glad to have you. We're very fortunate to have you and the whole team. And I just want to say that there's a whole team of professionals from residence life to safety issues to counseling issues and Title IX issues and all that
And the
whole
incredible
team.
student leaders, as Norah just
Yes,
pointed out.
and student leaders that are involved in creating this environment in which we learn, but also have fun and get to know people and all that stuff. So thank you so much for all
Thank
that you do. Thanks again, Chris, as always. And just want to say again, stay warm and safe. Make sure you bundle up and do those extra things to make sure that you're safe if your car doesn't start or any of those things. It's going to get cold again this weekend. But I've heard that next week we might get up to 40 again. So just this up and down roller coaster ride of weather. Please take advantage of this weekend. As Chris said, lots of athletic activities, but again, also art activities and opportunities to just get together, read some of your poetry or come together with friends. So, as the year begins, the new semester begins, make a new friend, get out of your room and stop playing that silly video game and get to an event where you can meet people.
Or go do esports during community
Or
time.
do esports
Or
during
community hour.
together as a joint thing. And enjoy the weekend. Thank you for joining us. Many blessings to you and all those you love.